Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Dr. Jeffrey Rosenbluth, who is the founder of Tetradapt and is the medical director of the Spinal Cord Injury Acute Rehabilitation Program at the Craig H. Nilsson Rehabilitation Hospital.
Yes, that's
got it out. Thank you for joining us, and you said we can call you Jeff.
Yes, please.
Very cool. Let's start with kind of the founding story of what you've done here with the TRAILS program, which is an acronym for Technology, Recreation, Access, Independent Lifestyle Sports at the University of Utah, with Tetradapt as the little nonprofit company that you guys have.
Exactly. Yes.
Let's just start with
that's
that.
great. Yeah, so I'm a physician. I specialize in spinal cord injury medicine, and I've been doing this since 2001. This was my first job out of training. And back in college, I got interested in I was a little bit of a ski bum. I was in San Diego in college and working in the Big Bear area for skiing and ski patrol. They were starting their first adaptive ski program for Southern California back in the mid 80s. And I just was really into that. I loved all this new technology for people with disabilities and really got into that and started teaching adaptive sports. This is 85. And fast forward through all of schooling and an interest in medicine and discovering this whole field of rehabilitation medicine and getting the job out here in Utah and really wanting to bring adaptive recreation up to the highest level that we could achieve. And so that was part of the TRAILS program. And so TRAILS is really about not just the recreation, but also the technology involved there, the actual sports and lifestyle and everything that it takes to participate in anything that you want, particularly after you've had some type of catastrophic illness or disease. And so TRAILS has focused primarily on people with the most complex physical disabilities. So there's lots of great resources, even locally here and across the country, but not a lot of people with a big team of clinicians, physicians, and therapists, and nurses, and recreation therapists, all focused on providing the most independence, the most performance that you could get for someone with, say, a very high spinal cord injury, someone who has no use of their trunk or their arms, or even limited function of their head, or someone who might even be on a ventilator. That's the group that we were targeting.
Okay. And these, oftentimes, at least in my association growing up, watching sports and reading Sports Illustrated growing up, there's always a story or two a year of whether it's an extreme athlete or football player, spinal cord injury.
Yes.
And obviously impacts their life. And I remember thinking, like, they're not going to change mentally that they like to compete and run around and feel the wind in their hair. I wonder what they're going to do. It's just like,
Sure.
it's just like, don't ever have that happen to you. Like, on the fear scale for me growing up, that was as bad as it got.
Yes.
Worse than death. Right?
Yeah, being paralyzed No, I can see that. A lot of people tell me that also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what folks like you and your team are like solving. Like, can't fix that the accident happened, but can improve lifestyle.
I think so. I don't think we have all of the resources yet through research to fix some of these things in spinal cord injury. We're coming a long way, and there's some exciting things happening. So I think our team is focused, both on the recovery piece and taking what we have and just maximizing that to the limit. And just really providing all the resources we can in that area and provide that early. I think if you're someone, I talk about that with some of my friends who have paralysis too. A lot of times when you're younger too, or even when you're older, you think of yourself as the sport that you are, right? I am a skier. Who are you? I'm a biker. I'm whatever it is. Oftentimes it's associated with a hobby or a sport. And so I think when you first get these injuries and you're in the hospital, and you feel like that's been ripped away from you and that's never coming back. And that was a big part of who you were. Yeah. And so the sooner it feels like we reintroduce that potential, it does feel like the better that recovery process, the better the rehab process, the better the outcome for folks, whether or not they gain the type of recovery that they are hoping to regain. It's just a much more positive experience.
Yeah. And we recently participated in a ski event that you guys had for the tetra ski, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so that's the present, but a lot went into that. So maybe we could go in reverse and illustrate to the listeners and the viewers like what it took to accomplish that.
Yeah. I think if you if you're going to focus on people with the most complex disabilities, you got to take a look at the landscape, what is out there already. And there are a lot of amazing tools, high tech, medium tech, low tech tools to get people doing exciting, complex things with a disability. But it usually stops at a lower level of disability, someone who's lost the use of their legs. But when you start to lose more things like your trunk or your coordination or your arms, there really are not a lot of tools out there. So that's really where we started. And a lot of us enjoy Utah. We enjoy skiing and all the sports that we have here. And so that's where we started. We have an engineer that we work with that's also a skier. And so we really started to look at that sport, what was there and what was needed. And what we needed was something that was much more stable and something that actually even was electronically actuated to be able to steer. If someone does not have the strength, we needed to kind of subsidize that. Just like in a power wheelchair, if you have a complex disability, you're in a power chair, not a manual chair. So we needed to add some elements of powered control. And that's really what our first product, the Tetra ski, was about. It was about turning those skis electronically and using the same input that someone would be used to in their power chair, like a joystick control, or in some cases, even a breath control, or what they call a sip and puff system that's in their mouth. And that's what we accomplished. So with basic hand movement or basic breath control, you can independently control this ski in pretty complex conditions out there in any of our resorts. And we've been doing that for 5 years now.
Yeah. It's a sit-down type of chair that has 3 skis.
So yeah, this is, and many people are familiar because you're seeing so many of these types of skis at resorts now, and there's different types of ski. This is a ski with 2 skis.
2 skis.
And they're wide based, and so you don't really have to provide the balance part of it. And the skis are independently actuated. And so with different control schemes, pushing that joystick forward or back or left or right, you have infinite control and independent control of those skis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were, Rip Van Winkle and you were asleep for 40 years and woke up, I think things like this would be like awe-inspiring, right? Like I can't fathom that they've built this, they engineered it to where somebody with no use of their legs or limbs can still enjoy skiing.
Yeah, I think even now that it's been out 5 years, no one gets it until they see it. I think it's difficult to understand. We try to get as many people, disabled or not, in it, because once you're in it, it's almost like being in an electric car. Like once you're in one, you know that that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And when you see this ski, you understand that okay, it's not okay anymore to just get someone outside and just say, hey, you're outside, or hey, we're going to take you for a ride. You've restored a level of autonomy and a level of performance that people just didn't imagine.
Yeah.
And both for the athletes and then for people who support these athletes and different programs, we've got to get everyone to see it. It's not perfected yet, but it's a great start, and we're excited. And so far, the country and the world has responded. So we actually have had requests, and we do have the products already in Europe, so in France and Switzerland, Netherlands, East Coast, Rockies, West Coast, Northern Southern California, and Canada.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And with all things engineering and really cool feats of engineering, I'm interested in like what the actual like skunk works looks like the lab, the R&D. So
that's great. Yes.
How does it work in kind of day to day?
Yeah. So that's what's been almost the most exciting part, is really bringing together all of the resources that a university, an academic campus has. So getting engaged with the professors in mechanical engineering and computer science, and each one of the students at the school all have a response. In fact, they're paying a tuition to work on projects to bolster their engineering skills. And so we've been able to work with them on saying, hey, instead of building a go-kart, why don't you build this piece of adaptive equipment that's going to change someone's life? And it's gone over very well. At any given time, we may have 20 to 30 students, and these may be undergraduate students or graduate students or postgraduate students, all working on these projects. And we sprinkle a little bit of money here and there to get the parts that we need, but we usually get a great prototype, to start testing and thinking about how to move that forward. So a really efficient process. We have an in-house mechanical engineer now that we hired out of the University of Utah after he graduated. And we are really fortunate in our new hospital, the Craig H. Nielsen Rehab Hospital. We actually have a fabrication lab and what we call a mobility garage, where we can not just test, but actually build all of these products in-house inside of a rehabilitation center.
Yeah. And I imagine, if you're a student, that is a fun way to go through your schooling, working
Yeah,
on that.
I think it is. I mean, I've watched students through different projects, and the more relevant the project is to disability, I do see them being more engaged. And also, I also feel in some way we're taking this, this work from them, but we're also giving back, because I think whatever they end up doing in their engineering futures, they will have seen, I think, our population of people with disabilities, and I just don't think they'll see the world the same way. I think as they're designing whatever they're designing in the future, I hope that they keep our population in mind, and think about even sometimes the small tweaks they might do in a product that would help accommodate a larger group of individuals.
Yeah. And, they obviously get graded and graduate and matriculate out. And I imagine it's, to your point, very rewarding that they can look back 20 years from now, even, and like, I had a part of that.
Well, yeah, I think not only that, but we're making sure that we assign inventorship, to them, so they're part of the IP. And I don't expect us to retire early on any of these products. That's not why we're doing it. But if we do sell some of these products too, I do hope there's going to be something coming back to the students, and recognition, and maybe a small little check if we sell a couple hundred of these. I think would be really exciting. And we're going to keep in touch with them as they graduate and keep them part of this community of innovation for disability.
Yeah. And so from kind of start to where we are now, a highly functioning team or a product, and in the tetra ski, you mentioned it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good.
Yes.
What was the time cycle for that?
Yeah, that's interesting that you ask. I just looked at a video from 2014. It was the first senior design engineering team that got one run on the prototype ski, and it was sketchy, really sketchy. So that was probably, I guess it was 5 years before we got the tetra ski out. And then it was probably 5 years before we got our other product, the tetra watercraft, out, which is a modification of a Hobie product, the Hobie Island Adventure Tandem. And that really is an independent sailing and kayaking experience with the same control systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's taking us a while. I think that's really my goal, is to shorten that time, because it's true, if you start with a very early prototype with an undergraduate and move it through a traditional system, it takes a long time. And we have a lot of products, and I think what we need to do is we really do need to find more partners and more students, and of course more dollars. I think to try to get some products happening in parallel.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a really fun and energetic place to work. I'm interested in the engineering debate, because outside of like little projects on the farm or something like that where there's more than one person, it's like, we should do it this way, we should do it that way. I don't know how the actual process works. Is like, you guys are developing things, is there somebody that has a veto and like, that's a great idea, but we're going to do it this way? Or is it democratic? Do you guys all vote? How does it work?
It's we're a small group, and so it's a little bit democratic. I think some of the bigger decisions I'm definitely a part of, but our engineer at the end of the day tells me what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so it's really just a small team or two or three of us that are doing it. And of course, the proof is in the activity. So with the ski or the boat, we can go test in real time. We have patients inside of our hospital that can look at our control systems in real time. Mm-hmm. And so those decisions are easier to make when we can just test our products rapidly and extensively. And that's what we've done with these two. So we have a lot of confidence that they're safe products. They also involve a lot of training for instructors and coaches that are working with this equipment. And we've wrapped a whole training program around the product as well.
Yeah. And so as far as like the portfolio, we've got the tetra ski, and then you mentioned the
tetra watercraft.
Tetra watercraft.
Yes.
Anything else?
So those are the two things that are online and distributed right now. We're actually looking at a power assist cross country ski. I mean, cross country skiing is such an amazing sport, and it's still growing. And we have an adapted population that is doing that as well. But if you're going to get folks that are more involved, you need, just like all of our bikes now, road bikes, mountain bikes, all have e-assist. Everyone's enjoying that, even if you're a good athlete. We've got to do it for these sports also. And so whether that's a traditional cross-country trail or just a hiking trail that you want to go out with your friends on and need a little power assist, that's our next our next product. We're also looking at a more waterproof beach chair where you can get out of your car in a parking lot, go out on some sand, beach, lake, beach, wherever, and go right into the water.
Okay.
Right now, there are products that can take you on sand, but are not quite waterproof, and you need 4 people to lift you into the water to go swimming.
Yeah.
Why can't you drive right in there, hop in yourself, swim, and get out, and all of that? So that's another one that we're working on too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of what you guys start with is, why can't you do that? And then you come up with the solutions.
Yes, and then we try to think through all of the ways that someone would still have or not have an issue participating. So, like for the boat, for instance, the Tetra watercraft, it's still hard to get in and out of it. It's still hard to launch it. So we actually had another team design a mothership for the Tetra watercraft, which looks a lot like a pontoon boat that's enclosed, that has a cargo ramp in the back. And so you can pull the Tetra watercraft into this mothership where you can charge it, where you can more easily transfer people into it, have some shade for when you're getting people ready. And so we just try to think through the issue, like why can't someone participate? It's not always the equipment. It's how do you get there? How do you get in it? How do you get out of it? We try to think through all of that and just chip away, one sport, one activity at a time.
Yeah. And you guys do this through, some of this obviously takes money. All of it takes money.
Yes.
How do you guys keep the lights on and keep operations going?
Yes. So we're super lucky. As part of a rehab center, we have an obligation to provide recreation. And so the University of Utah, through the Rehabilitation Center, is really paying the labor for a lot of our trails folks. And then we've been very lucky in a lot of philanthropic activity, a lot of grants we've written to foundations, and then still ongoing university support to build these products. And we try to stay incredibly low overhead. The fabrication lab is inside of our building. We don't have to pay for a building, and we don't pay for labor. And we have all of those students who are helping on the product. So just a tiny bit of money is is all it takes, actually, sometimes to build these out. I think that's what people don't realize. We couple $1,000s to sponsor a product with the engineers and the students, and you get a functioning prototype that you can then play around with. And if it's something that really looks good, then you can pursue additional funding. But so many great early prototypes that we have now to play with that didn't really cost very much.
Yeah. And I get the sense that things like this, very positive for a lot of people, could really only happen at like an academic institution where you've got that mandate and the students and the building and the support from the university and a bunch of others. But if folks outside of that ecosystem wanted to donate, they could, I would assume.
Absolutely. I mean, not only that, I think part of our mission is to show other areas, other centers, you can do the same thing there. Every engineering program in the country has a senior design program. We'd really like to see adaptive recreation centers really get closer to their rehab centers and form these partnerships. Because I think that's another way we were mentioning earlier. We're dribbling one product out every 5 years.
Yeah.
We need other centers to join forces and do this. And we're trying to let other people know what our little secret sauce, what our formula is to do that, which really isn't that secret. It's really just communicating and reaching out. And we're really trying to not just sell these products or lease these products. They're partnerships. So we're raising the money to put a ski in another program. And then we would like them to be our beta testers. We'd like them to give feedback. If they're going to get a ski for free, we'd like them, as part of their partnership, to reach out to their rehabilitation center and pull people into the sport. Because one of the things we didn't mention is we have a nice pipeline for athletes, right? We have people that we're taking care of, and then we're sending them to our sports programs. Other sports programs in the country get what they get. And they don't get a lot of people coming with complex disabilities because they don't think there's something there for them. So there has to be this outreach all over the country and all over the world back to the individuals and the patients in the rehab centers to get more of this happening.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite stories?
Well, I think my most recent, I'll tell you an early story which kind of kicked everything off was we were kind of proud of our trails program, our adaptive program, before we had any specialized equipment. And I do remember a patient that came into my clinic, my medical clinic, and I started to try to get him excited about trails. And he just looked at me and he said, well, what do you have for me? And this was someone with a high injury level who could just move his head. And I just kind of thought about it for a minute. I'm like, well, I have nothing for you. So I think just that moment was like, what am I doing? Because I mean, this guy didn't want to go for a ride. He wanted something that he could control and do. And so that really, really motivated us and got us moving, fast tracking it. But the most recent story was really about pulling off this, what we're calling the Tetra Ski Express, which is a recent and world's first race for people with complex disabilities in this specialized equipment. So what started out as sort of a fun idea, really became something that was way more competitive and high end than I had expected. And so we put together, a really professionally run race with gates and timing, and we recruited athletes from all over the country. We had 6 different states represented, and their families supporting. We had folks on ventilators. I mean, this is mechanical ventilation with a ventilator attached to the ski. We had people with CP who could only operate the ski with their foot. So we would mount the joystick down by their foot, and we ran gates. And it wasn't just 30 seconds here, 40 seconds to run. People were separated by 0.3 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And it was just so beyond my level of thinking of what we were going to be able to accomplish and how serious people took it and how much it filled a void in their competitive nature, and for their families to see them doing something that they never expected. They did not have those expectations for their sons or daughters, was very, very powerful.
Yeah. I can imagine it's very rewarding, probably a lot of big old smiles and probably some tears of joy as well.
There are a lot of tears from us also. I think it's just, you couldn't help by being overwhelmed by it all. It felt like we were reaching another level of understanding of human potential.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little dramatic, but it felt that way at the time, that we were looking at people differently in such a better way.
Yeah, for sure. Meat and potatoes part of the podcast. How do you structure and manage your day? Kind of what tools do you use? What management philosophies do you adhere to?
Yeah, I have an amazing administrative assistant that tells me what to do, when to go to the restroom. That's the only way to do it. I'm a procrastinator, and I really have surrounded myself with some amazing people that keep me on task and keep me moving forward. There's a lot of clinical work that we're doing, seeing patients in addition to the innovation work. And so, but at the end of the day, like I'm sure all of your guests, it's just a lot of hard work and a lot of hours and a little bit of sleep, and be just motivated to make something new and make something impactful.
Yeah. What's coming down the chute that's got you most excited?
Yeah, so our director of our trails program, Tanya Kari, is a former Paralympic athlete, 10-time gold medalist in cross-country skiing, and she is the one driving the competitive nature of our program. And so she has really pushed us in that race that we were just discussing. But what's the next level after a local race? And so this next year we're going to sponsor some regional races, so that we can really flush out our athletes and get sort of the cream of the crop and bring them back to Utah, and have a national race series, and then eventually try to get closer to the Paralympic movement. And we would like to see a section within the Paralympics. They already do adaptive skiing, but it's for people with much less complex injuries. Can we get this population competing at a Paralympic level? That's where we're heading. We'd really like to partner with the Olympics and Paralympics. We know that there's a bid to bring them back to Utah. We think that there's a way to potentially have an innovation center around this complex population for equipment and techniques, and that Utah would be an obvious hub to provide that. So that's really where we're heading, to be kind of on the world stage with a new sport. And I should have mentioned also, we're moving forward with virtual reality, augmented reality simulators. So if you live in the Philippines, and you want to be a competitive tetra skier, we're going to try to provide the tools where you really can practice at a very high level and then come together on the snow for some of these races and get the whole world participating at a very elite level.
Wonderful. You guys have your work cut out for you. You've got a lot to do.
I think so, yes.
That's very, very awesome, and it's inspirational. We've enjoyed being partners with you guys for several years
Thank you
now.
so much. And thank you for helping us sponsor the video on the Tetra Ski Express. That's available on trails_adaptive. That's on our Instagram, and just really powerfully captured that moment there. So thank you for your support.
You bet. Thank you. And we'll look forward to hearing more updates of all of your research and development coming into real products and helping real people.
Thank you. Love to come back. Thanks for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.